Good morning. Welcome back to yet another section of Signatures Expressing the Self. In our last class, we started third chapter in second module. We went through the details of the author Svetlana Alexievich and her works. Then we also talked about her book Voices from Chernobyl. Svetlana Alexievich is investigative journalist, essayist and oral historian who writes in Russian. She has won many international awards including the 2015 Nobel Prize in Literature for her polyphonic writings, A Monument to Suffering and Courage in Our Time. On April 26, 1986, the worst nuclear reactor accident in history occurred in Chernobyl and contaminated as much as 3/4 of Europe. Voices from Chernobyl is the first book to present personal accounts of the tragedy. So, I want to talk about Chernobyl disaster. The Chernobyl disaster was caused by a nuclear accident that occurred on Saturday 26 April 1986 at the number 4 reactor in the Chernobyl nuclear power plant near the city of Pripyat in the north of the Ukraine SSR. It is considered the worst nuclear disaster in history and was caused by one of only 2 nuclear energy accidents rated at 7, the maximum severity on the International Nuclear Event Scale, the other being the 2011 nuclear disaster in Japan. The accident started during a safety test on an RBMK type nuclear reactor, which was commonly used throughout the Soviet Union. The test was a simulation of an electrical power outage to aid the development of a safety procedure for maintaining reactor cooling water circulation until the backup electrical generators could provide power. This gap was about 1 minute and had been identified as a potential safety problem that could cause the nuclear reactor core to overheat. It was hoped to prove that the residual rotational energy in a turbine generator could provide enough power to cover the gap. 3 such tests had been conducted since 1982, but they had failed to provide a solution. On this 4th attempt, an unexpected 10-hour delay meant that an unprepared operating shift was on duty. During the planned decrease of reactor power in preparation for the electrical test, the power unexpectedly dropped to a near zero level. The operators were able to only partially restore the specified test power, which put the reactor in a potentially unstable condition. This risk was not made evident in the operating instructions, so the operators proceeded with the electrical test. Upon test completion, the operators triggered a reactor shutdown, but a combination of unstable conditions and reactor design flaws caused an uncontrolled nuclear chain reaction instead. A large amount of energy was suddenly released, vaporizing superheated cooling water and rupturing the reactor core in a highly destructive steam explosion. This was immediately followed by an open-air reactor core fire that released considerable airborne radioactive contamination for about 9 days that precipitated onto parts of the USSR and Western Europe before being finally contained on 4th May 1986. The fire gradually released about the same amount of contamination as the initial explosion. As a result of rising ambient radiation levels off site, a 10-kilometer radius exclusion zone was created 36 hours after the accident. About 49,000 people were evacuated from the area, primarily from Pripyat. The exclusion zone was later increased to 30 kilometers radius when a further 68,000 people were evacuated from the wider area. The reactor explosion killed 2 of the reactor operating staff. In the emergency response that followed, 134 station staff and firemen were hospitalized with acute radiation syndrome due to absorbing high doses of ionizing radiation. Of these 134 people, 28 died in the days to months afterward, and approximately 14 suspected radiation-induced cancer deaths followed within the next 10 years. Among the wider population, an excess of 15 childhood thyroid cancer deaths were documented as of 2011. The United Nations Scientific Committee on the Effects of Atomic Radiation has at multiple times reviewed all the published research on the incident and found that at present fewer than 100 documented deaths are likely to be attributable to increased exposure to radiation. Determining the total eventual number of exposure related deaths is uncertain based on the linear no threshold model, a contested statistical model which has also been used in estimates of low level radon and air pollution exposure. Model predictions with the greatest confidence values of the eventual total death toll in the decades ahead from Chernobyl releases vary from 4,000 fatalities when solely assessing the 3 most contaminated former Soviet states to about 9,000 to 16,000 fatalities when assessing the total continent of Europe. To reduce the spread of radioactive contamination from the wreckage and protect it from weathering, the protective Chernobyl nuclear power plant sarcophagus was built by December 1986. It also provided radiological protection for the crews of the undamaged reactors at the site, which continued operating. Due to the continued deterioration of the sarcophagus, it was further enclosed in 2017 by the Chernobyl New Safe Confinement, a larger enclosure that allows the removal of both the sarcophagus and the reactor debris while containing the radioactive hazard. Nuclear cleanup is scheduled for completion in 2065. The Chernobyl disaster is considered the worst nuclear power plant accident in history, both in terms of cost and casualties. The initial emergency response, together with the later decontamination of the environment, ultimately involved more than 5 lakh personnel and cost an estimated 18 billion Soviet rubles adjusted for inflation. The accident resulted in safety upgrades on all remaining Soviet-designed RBMK reactors, of which 10 continue to be operational as of 2019. So I think through this you will get the clear picture of Chernobyl disaster. I already told you Svetlana Alexievich, she interviewed more than 100 victims of this Chernobyl disaster, and she is recorded or documented all these experiences of the victims through her book Voices from Chernobyl. Voices from Chernobyl is a powerful work which narrates the personal details of the stories and often touches on the broader themes. Voices from Chernobyl, which won the National Book Circle Award, is a compilation of interviews with survivors of the nuclear reactor accident. The book begins and ends with the testimony of two widows. One, the young wife of a Pripyat firefighter who went at night to fight the blaze in his shirt sleeves. The other, wife of a liquidator, one of the 6 lakh men drafted in to bury the topsoil and shoot every animal in the zone. He is the last in his platoon to die. Voices from Chernobyl begins with the story of young pregnant wife of one of the first firefighters who responded to the fire at reactor 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant and of his slow death. The voice recorded here is that of Lyudmila Ignenko, wife of the deceased fireman Vasily Ignenko. So all of you please kindly take the page number 74. Okay, I think all of you are ready with the page number 74. Okay. So we can go through the textbook. A solitary human voice. Here, Lyudmila narrates the incidents from the night of the accident till the slow death of her husband and her life afterwards. I think all of you remembered well who is Lyudmila Ignenko. Who is Lyudmila? Yes, she is the wife of the first firefighter who responded to the fire at reactor 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Okay, then we already understood she is a pregnant lady and she is narrating all her experiences relating this nuclear disaster. Lyudmila Ignenko, wife of deceased fireman Vasily Ignenko. Her husband's name is Vasily Ignenko. Okay, then he is the first firefighter who responded to the fire at reactor 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. We were newlyweds. We still walked around holding hands Even if we were just going to the store, I would say to him, I love you. But I didn't know then how much. I had no idea. We lived in the dormitory of the fire station where he worked. I always knew that was happening where he was, how he was. Okay, if you want, you can note down the meaning of the word dormitory. Dormitory means, yes, it's a very familiar word for you, I know. It's meaning a large room with many beds where people can sleep. Okay, a large room with many beds where people can sleep. So here Ludmilla, the wife of Vasily Ignenko, the first fireman, the first firefighter who responded to the nuclear disaster. She is narrating her experiences. So she says there were newlyweds and they were staying in the dormitory of the fire station, and even we can see that they are enjoying their honeymoon period. And I told you both of them lived in the dormitory of the fire station. One night I heard a noise. I looked out the window. He saw me, close the window and go back to sleep. There is a fire at the reactor. I will be back soon. I didn't see the explosion itself, just the flames. Everything was radiant, the whole sky. A tall flame and smoke. The heat was awful and he still hadn't come back. So she started to recall that night. The night she never forgets in her life. And even she revealed that she awakened from her sleep by a loud noise. She started to look through the window. At that moment, her husband was outside. Then he just instructed her to close the window and go to sleep. And even he also informed that I'm going to the reactor, there is a fire at the reactor, so I want to go to the reactor. Then she just looked outside and she couldn't understand what is happening. She saw the flames. Everything was radiant at the moment, the whole sky. Then she also remembered well there was tall flame and smoke. About the heat, it was extremely bad and he still hadn't come back. They went off just as they were, in their shirt sleeves. No one told them they had been called for a fire. That was it. About her husband, when he got the message from this disaster, he just went to that reactor, and even he didn't take any precaution because he didn't know the seriousness of this disaster. So by hearing the comment relating the disaster, he just ran to the reactor without taking any precaution. 7 o'clock in the morning. At 7, I was told he was in the hospital. I ran over there, but the police had already encircled it. Encircled means surrounded, and they weren't letting anyone through, only ambulances. The policemen shouted, "The ambulances are radioactive, stay away." I started looking for a friend. She was a doctor at that hospital. I grabbed her white coat when she came out of an ambulance. "Get me inside." "I can't. He is bad. They all are." I held on to her just to see him. "All right," she said. "Come with me just for 15 or 20 minutes. And we can see that she waited. Ludmila waited for her husband till the morning, but he didn't come back. Finally, at 7 o'clock in the morning, she got the message that he was in the hospital. Then she reached very quickly in the hospital. Then we can see that the police were already surrounded that area. It's not possible to enter into the ambulance. Fortunately, he had a doctor, he had a friend, she is a doctor. She works in the same hospital. So with the help of her friend, she got the chance to meet her husband at least 15 minutes. She requested her to arrange to meet her husband. Then with the help of that friend, she got the chance to meet her husband for 15 minutes. I saw him. He was all swollen and puffed up. You could barely see his eyes. Puffed up means out of breath. Actually, when Ludmila saw her husband, he was swollen and puffed up. He felt it is very difficult to take breath. They should drink at least, you could barely see his eyes, and even his eyes simply proved that he had very pain. He needs milk, lots of milk. My friend said they should drink at least 3 liters each. But he doesn't like milk. He will drink it now. At the moment, while she was spending the time with her husband, Vasily Ignenko, at the moment her friend reminded her, you should arrange lots of milk, at least 3 liters each. Then she revealed that actually her husband doesn't like milk. So at the moment her friend told her, definitely he is ready to drink milk because of this current situation. Many of the doctors and nurses in that hospital, and especially the orderlies, would get sick themselves and die. But we didn't know that then. Orderlies means, yes, well behaved. Then we can see that the doctors and nurses in that hospital, they already behaved very well. Even they knew it well, they are they are facing the death very soon. But they were very active, they did their job very sincerely. But you know, at the moment the victims' relatives, they couldn't understand, they couldn't think about the situations of doctors and nurses. At 10, the cameraman Shishnok died. He was the first. Then Ludmila revealed that when she spent the time in that hospital with her husband, at the moment she heard the first death. Who died at first? Okay. Then she heard the first death. It was the cameraman Shishanok. I said to my husband, Vasinga, what should I do? Get out of here. Go have our child. I was pregnant, but how could I leave him? He was saying to me, go, leave, save the baby. First I need to bring you some milk. Then we will decide what to do. My friend Tania Kibonak came running in. Her husband was in the same room. Her father was with her. He had a car. We got in and drove to the nearest village. We bought a bunch of 3-liter bottles. 6. So there was enough for everyone. But they started throwing up terribly from the milk. Then at the moment, Ludmilla, she became in confusion what to do. Then she asked her husband. Then about Vasily Ignenko, he had no doubt. He already revealed her, you just go out from here because it is not safe to stay here. She is pregnant. So he requested him, kindly you please save our child. But for Ludmilla, it is not possible to leave her husband. Even she is conceiving, she wants to spend the time with her husband. Then again she met one of her friends in the same hospital. Her name is Tania Kibenok. Tania's husband was also in that hospital. She reached here in the hospital with her father. Then her father had a car. Then at the moment it is easy for them to arrange milk. So they bought 3-liter bottles. It was enough for the victims. But you know, the patients, they started to throwing up terribly from the milk. Throwing up means vomiting. So they started to vomit terribly from the milk. They kept passing out. They got put on IVs. The doctors kept telling them they had been poisoned by gas for some reason. No one said anything about radiation. Then I told you, the patients from the Chernobyl disaster, they started to vomit. Then they became unconscious. Passing out means become unconscious. So they started to unconscious. Then they put on IVs. IVs means intravenous drip. So they got IVs. The doctors kept telling them they had been poisoned by gas for some reason. No one said anything about radiation. At the moment when the victims of this disaster, they started to vomit, doctors revealed the fact that they had been poisoned by gas. Because of that, they started to vomit. But at the moment, the doctors, they didn't speak about the radiation. I couldn't get into the hospital that evening. There was a sea of people. I stood under his window. He came over and yelled something to me. It was so desperate. Someone in the crowd heard him. They were being taken to Moscow that night. All the wives got together in one group. We decided we would go with them. Let us go with our husbands. You have no right. We punched and we clawed. The soldiers, there were already soldiers. They pushed us back. Then the doctor came out and said they were flying to Moscow, but we needed to bring them their clothing. The clothes they had worn at the station had been burned. The buses had stopped running already, and we ran across the city. We came running back with the bags, but the plane was already gone. They tricked us so that we wouldn't be there yelling and crying. Then I told you, the victims of the disaster, they started to vomit. They became unconscious. Even the doctor revealed that they had been poisoned by gas. But at the moment, they were not at all ready to speak about the radiation. But they took the precaution to take care of these victims from their relatives and other people. That is why the soldiers are encircled these patients. And even when she reached back in the hospital that evening, she identified it is very difficult to enter into the hospital. She just saw her husband through the window. And even at that moment, Vasily was not in a good mood. She started to shout and said something. At the moment she got the information, all the victims they are taking to Moscow that night. Then she started to think about how to accompany him. Then the wives of the victims they made a group. They started to take the decision that definitely they would accompany with their husbands. But you know, the soldiers they were encircled the patients, and they strongly revealed that it is not possible, and they used the power to get rid of the people from the hospital. And they also used another trick. Actually the victims they had no the dresses, so you should arrange the dresses for them. By hearing that, all the wives went to their homes to take the dresses. Within that moment they started their journey from the hospital to Moscow. When the wives reached back in the hospital, they understood, they became tricked. Later in the day, I started throwing up. I was 6 months pregnant, but I had to get to Moscow. I already told you she is conceiving. So she was not in a good mood. Actually she is physically very weak, but she wanted to accompany with her husband. She wanted to reach in Moscow for protecting her husband, or at least look after her husband. So it was a strong decision of her somehow to reach at the hospital. In Moscow, we asked the first police officer we saw where did they put the Chernobyl firemen, and he told us, which was a surprise. Everyone had scared us into thinking it was top secret hospital number 6 at the Shukhinskaya. Anyway, wife of Vasily Ignenko, she reached in Moscow. She was determined, whatever the problems she had. Finally, she reached in Moscow, and she saw the first police officer. She asked where did they put the Chernobyl fireman. Actually, it was very confidential, but you know that police officer revealed the secret to her. He revealed that the firemen they already hospitalized hospital number 6 at Shukhinskaya. It was special hospital for radiology, and you couldn't get in without pass. I gave some money to the woman at the door, and she said, "Go ahead." Then I had to ask someone else back. Finally, I was sitting in the office of the head radiologist, Angelina Vasilenka Guskova. Right away, she asked, "Do you have kids?" Anyway, with the help of that police officer, she identified the hospital. It was hospital number 6 at Shukhinskaya. And she reached at the hospital, but actually that hospital for radiology, and it is very difficult to enter in the hospital without any pass. So it was the next step for her So she started to try to get the pass. Okay, I think this is enough for today's class. We will continue the same chapter, Voices from Chernobyl, in the next class. Thank you.